All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Lori and Dan and Catherine. And today we are going to be continuing our discussion of Your Soul's Plan by Rober Schwartz. And we're talking about chapter 6, Death of a Loved One, and what meaning can we gain from, from losing someone who's dear to us in our lives. But before we get going, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we can dig into this discussion. All right, guys, jump out.
Hello, it's Catherine in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Hello, Dan Sisek in hot Las Vegas, where we're under a heat wave thing again for this week and all that. So yeah, and we're in September, so but glad to be here.
Awesome, guys. And we have Lori also in the background. Lori doesn't have a microphone that cooperates with her, so I know that she will here in the near future so that she can participate with us in the speaking part of the conversation. I know you'll jump out and share your thoughts in the chat when you can. Losing someone, we've all probably, I'm sure that all of us here have lost someone in our lives. And one thing in this chapter, Robert kind of speculates that there's got to be some really deep growth meaning to loss of, to losing someone, to having death in our lives. Otherwise, why would we be on a physical plane? Why would we incarnate in this physical plane where death is inevitable, where no matter what, you will experience it in some way, shape, or form? Some people obviously have experienced loss of someone they really care about at an early point in their lives, and then other people may even go through most of their life without experiencing it too much. But I think that pretty much, I don't think there's very many people that haven't had some experience with it, whether it's the loss of somebody who's an immediate family member, or a grandparent, or aunt, uncle, or even just a pet. Or saying just, that's not really, to lose a pet. I think everybody has dealt with that at some point in time in their life, even from a young age. And so we all face this. So what meaning can be gained from it? That's kind of the question of this chapter is why do we have to go through it? Why is it so important that we experience that? And what can we learn from it? So, but before we dig into some of Robert's thoughts on this, well, let me just kind of preface. In this chapter, he has a discussion with Valerie, and Valerie, he kind of uses her as the example, and so Valerie has experienced the loss of a child as well as a fiance, and he kind of digs into this topic by exploring these experiences with her and through three mediums, with her soul and with her spirit guides, and then speaks directly to the souls of both her son and her fiance. And so there's a lot of information that we can gain from this particular chapter. But before we get into the details of Valerie and her life, and I want to kind of just each of us share a little bit about what experiences we've had with death and losing somebody who's dear to us, because I think that we've each of us has experienced that, and I think that we can really kind of share our own lessons that we've learned, and then dig into what Robert is saying about it and what he's learned, and maybe the insights that we've gained since looking at that. So who wants to start, since I've been talking for a little bit?
Lori just wrote in some stuff. I'm guessing it's okay to read that since you wrote it in there. Is that correct, Lori? If you can just give me a, okay. I just want to make sure. She says, it's brought up a lot of questions. I had a dream when I was pregnant with my first child that an alien-like being walked into the bedroom, crawled into bed with me, and entered my body. And I remember that dream like it was last night. And I don't remember very many of my dreams. I've often wondered if it was the soul of my aborted baby from when I was a young teenager. And this whole book has made me wonder about our free will, if we have that, and how it affects the pre-birth plan. Isn't it amazing how certain dreams are, I mean, I think there's dreams and then there's dreams, right? Like there's those very prophetic dreams or dreams that just have an impact that we never ever forget those dreams. And you know, it's so interesting to me. And you bring this bring up the babies, and of course I was a baby nurse for years, and even though, like, my first experience with death was with a babysitter's mother who died, and I went to the funeral and she sat up and started talking to me. So my first experience with death was probably a little different than most people's, because it opened up my eyes to the fact that we don't die. And one of the things that this book mentions, or this chapter mentions specifically, you know, how sometimes we try to comfort people by saying, oh, well, you'll be reunited one day. We look forward to being reunited one day. And the thing that this points out is we're never separated. There is no reuniting needed because we never separate. And having lost children myself through miscarriage, and then being at the bedside with babies who died throughout my nursing career. Another thing that this chapter said that gave me great comfort is that no soul leaves their body here without its own permission. In other words, there, you know, these things that we see as accidents, and we tend to say, oh, that shouldn't have happened, or that happened too soon, or they were too young, or, you know, fuck that drunk driver that killed that person, or whatever we say, all these judgments that we come out with. The fact of the matter is, or maybe not the fact, but my belief about this is that souls do choose when they come in and when they go out. And even though I always, at the bedside, I always did everything that I consciously knew to do at that time, and even things that I was psychically guided to do, you know, a lot of babies died. And there's a few of them, not all of them, but there was a few of them that I had, you know, a little bit of like, oh, could I have done something more? You know, and I was carrying some guilt about that. And this chapter reinforced for me what I already knew, that no, you know, we already know we have, I think when we come in to this life, we have multiple exit points that we can take. And I don't know about everybody else on the panel, but I know personally, like, I've come this close to death so many times and either been saved or, you know, it's like something miraculous happens. And I think that we're given the opportunity to opt out through different ways. And sometimes these babies, you know, they're so amazing, and they do everything that they need to do in a short period of time. Or other times they come in and it's just not right, and they're like, oh, hell no, I'm not up for this, you know, I wasn't expecting that. And so they go back out and they come back in another time. And but our loved ones do communicate to us through dreams. And sometimes they, even though we don't understand, you know, why things happened the way it happened, I think that it's the core message of this chapter, I think, and maybe it's just because it's what I need to hear in the moment, which is, we were talking beforehand about how we need to, you know, the stuff that we do is important, whether we realize it or not. And for me, the main message of this chapter was self-forgiveness and self-compassion. Because it says at a certain point, it says, you know, if a dear friend came to you and they were grieving, you know, you would comfort them. You wouldn't just like, oh, get over it or whatever. Well, maybe you would, I don't know. But, you know, we tend to judge ourselves so harshly, and we don't cut ourselves any slack. And I think that sometimes we blame ourselves for things that we've done in the past, or things we think we could have done better. And we really need to relax into that self-forgiveness and self-compassion and realize that everything is happening exactly like it's supposed to. And for someone like me who gets messages every day, like, I don't understand why I ever have it. I beat myself up over having feelings that I feel like I shouldn't have because I know this shit, and yet I still have these feelings, you know? So again, it's self-compassion and self-love.
I'll jump out and kind of share with me, and but it's also along the lines of what Lori just shared. So she says in the chat, she says, "So my aborted baby chose to," meaning to exit, based on what you were saying, and that's my question too, because even though I was very young and I don't remember it, but I've been told by my grandmother, and other family members that, because I'm the oldest of actually four kids by my real mom, and there was my, um, there was me, then my sister, who was 13 and a half months younger than me. Then I think a year or two, I had, there was another brother, and I don't remember which was first, Richie or Timmy, but one died of, uh, was stillborn, and then the next one, however the order went, was died of crib death. Now, in that's kind of, and I don't remember really that. I just vaguely remember the one brother a very teeny tiny bit. So for me, I don't think I really grieved or anything. As I've gotten older, I grieved missing, having a true flesh and blood brother and stuff, because me and my sister's relationship's not the greatest. Um, but I have my brother here from, this, things going on here. But that's, you know, you know, because I survived what I went through, even though I don't want to go through it again or anything like that. I did survive, and they would have gone through it too. Um, so to me, what were the things that they saw that made them decide to check out, but that I didn't? That's, because then it makes me question, things like that. And I think that's kind of probably what Lori's doing a little bit too. And in that sense, you know, if the purpose is coming here to learn and experience, and yet going back to the free will question, I guess that is the free will, but why would you check out? Why would you then not? That's my question, is why would you not really go through that experience then to really learn whatever it is you're supposed to learn? And so that's part of what within my faith and what I believe and what I, get into. Um, you know, does that mean there's really no parameters that you have to really go by, or is it really, that's where a lot of my questions come from, because, and I, like I said, we're still connected, and I believe in a roundabout way, yes, we are still connected. But my grandmother passed away 15 years ago, and she was the person I was the closest to. She's the one that meant because I never really attached with my real mom and stuff. So there's that. But I, basically did with my grandmother. So in that sense, when she passed, that was a huge loss for me. And yet there have been times where I kind of felt her close, but at the same time, I miss what I really truly had with her, and I don't feel I've ever really still have sensed that. Um, so in that sense, that's why it's kind of like, you know, there have been times where I've really needed her and wanted to feel her close, and in those moments, didn't fully feel it. And so in that's where I'm coming, with some of how I'm looking at some of this, and you know, I do believe I will see him again. I do believe I will be reunited with them. It's just I don't know if maybe partly the conduit for me is not as open as it should be, or something like that. And that's where I guess that's where a lot of my questions come in.
Yeah, this chapter brings up so many questions, and I know that we could talk on this topic for a while, and I'm sure that we will, because just going through every little bit and that, I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest questions that Robert kind of brings up is the why. Why do we, why do we put ourselves through this? This is, why. And he tries to ask through the mediums, in non confrontational ways. He says specifically he tries to ask these questions in non because he doesn't want the souls to, although I think that realistically, if he's speaking to a soul, they know, but there are all these questions of why would we do this to ourselves, and what can we gain from it, um and yet, if we aren't doing it to ourselves, then it does that suck more, that it's just happening and we have no control and we didn't set it up and it's da 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 da, it just is all this crap just keeps happening to us and there's no meaning to it. That I don't know. I've struggled with that over the years of just, is there meaning? Isn't there meaning? And it, it's hard. I have to sit here and say that in my opinion that I would rather choose to believe that there is some kind of meaning to it. And because we learn things, in this physical existence, regardless of whether or not we think there's meaning. So, I mean, if we are learning, then there must be some kind of meaning in it. And if we all have to experience death in some way, shape, or form multiple times throughout our lives, then there's got to be that may be one of the biggest things that we have to learn from. Um, Now, of course, maybe someone else has experience with some other kind of tragedy much more significantly throughout their life than they do, experience death. Because I know some of us have death come up in our lives more than others, and some of us have death come up close to people or individuals or animals that are very, very close to us more than others. And me working in the pet industry, I became very close with many, many animals that over the years they passed. And I had a thought. I had a thought last night when, I was looking at my dog. We recently took him to the vet because of the bladder infection, and I was thinking about how old he's getting and how many pets that we've had over the years, and it makes me wonder if maybe our pets are here specifically to create these bonds with us, and then they pass on in a short period of time, and we have to go through their loss multiple times in our lives. For those of us who are pet lovers, obviously, if you're not a pet lover, you don't have to experience that. But I wonder if maybe that is kind of like our training wheels for when we have to lose somebody that is a human companion to us, that is it's much more significant. However, I say that, and yet for me, my first real experience with profound loss in my life was when I was 18, and the person whom I had met, just a few years before that, um, he when he came into my life, I my experience was kind of like a soulmate type of feeling. I before even meeting him, I felt like I knew him. I like saw him from across the room, and I was like, there was some kind of connection with this person, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it, and we kind of revolved around each other for multiple years, close friends, and but we had a lot of fear with one another as well. But without digging into it, he passed in a car accident when I think we met in middle school, and it was when I was 18. He hadn't turned 18 yet. He died in a car accident, and for me that was like earth shifting for me. I mean, it was so profound of a loss that it stuck with me for years and years, and I struggled with letting other people in deeply because of that fear of loss. And and it wasn't, I was with my husband for many, many years before I finally was able to truly feel like I don't know. I don't know what the wording is for it, where kind of like you put up a wall, and because of fear of loss, fear of all of that, and for fear of letting someone get close because you're afraid of losing them. And we struggled in our relationship for a lot of years because of this wall I had up. And and eventually I was able to realize that I had gained a lot from that previous relationships that I had, and that I was missing out on so much by keeping this wall between myself and Chris. And so, once I realized I was doing that to myself, I was able to let go and know that, okay, I survived it once. If I have to go through it again, then I'll have gained so much. So uh, it's hard to talk about these things, because you have all these emotions, and you have all this deep connection with people, and you and really fully understanding what you're going through is hard, and knowing that I don't know, I'm kind of caught up. I need to stop talking for a minute, so I'll let you guys jump out.
I was gonna jump out and say a couple things. One, Catherine had made a comment about, maybe part of my questions are part of limiting beliefs, and I believe, and the way I say this, and I hope it comes out the way I want it to, is because I believe my views and my beliefs are what help encompass me and make me me, and what I'm experiencing here. But I also believe that part of those limiting beliefs came from the fact that we lose our memory of the stuff before we come here to understand, to help bridge that gap. So I believe that's I don't want to say how do I best say this? I don't want to say a hiccup. I think that's just one of the things of, if truly is this is what we're going through, one of the con- when you do experiments like you done with rats and stuff, you have that control thing, like for your control groups and this and that. That's how my brain is thinking of it. Maybe that's the one control factor that is in place for everybody, so that way it's free of and allows that free will then to operate then, so to speak. And maybe that's how to look at it, so I can maybe get my brain to wrap around that then. And two, going back to some of the things you were saying, Samantha, you know, I didn't really have anybody pass away when I was little except for my brothers, but I was young enough that I don't think it had an adverse effect on me. But in junior high, I had a friend, and I was not super close to him, but I knew him, and knew him enough, that committed suicide. So in that sense, it was kind of like, then at that time, it's like, well, what could I have done different or something like that? But I was able to get past that because I knew ultimately in the long run that was nothing that I did, or that deep down I don't think I could really have made a difference on, because I was not like one friend that was really super close to him. There was another, and I do think this was one of what we call a freak accident. I don't know why. Um, but a friend of mine was out, having fun, just like four wheeling and stuff out in the desert here and stuff in a truck. A couple of them, I think two or three of them, were riding in the back. Well, the truck hit some loose gravel and it flipped and everything like that. The other two jumped out, but my one friend hung on to the side of the truck, and as it rolled over, it severed his head. That to me, I think, was one of those tragedies, didn't need to happen, shouldn't have happened, incidences. And I look at it that way, and it's very hard for me to reconcile and say, oh no, that was planned, especially when three other people were. So, in that sense, that's where I have those questions and fight, deal with that, and I've also have dealt with, like you were talking about, pets. I've had pets die and stuff. I've had a couple that were very close, like my dog that I saved from some friends, and I made the decision to put her down because she was in so much pain, and just it was the best. That was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. It hurt me to the core to have to make that decision, but in the long run, I knew it was the right decision for her, to give her peace, allow her to go back to wherever. I don't believe they have souls, so I don't know what happens with them after that. But I've not really been around death a lot per se. My grandparents both passed on, but they were older. That I took it more as a normal course of life. They're older, you know, you pass on. Recently, well, last month, I had a friend who passed away from cancer. And I knew she had cancer. She was a very good dear friend of mine, a mentor when I worked at H&R Block. I worked with her for a while in her business when she went on her own. I loved her. It's just a wonderful friend. When I got the news she passed, it was kind of hard to process. It took me a whole day to put a post up on Facebook because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know, and when I finally did, you know, I put my heart into what I said. But she's only 6 months older than me. That kind of hit me close to home because it's like, wow, somebody basically my own age. She could have. We teased. I teased her. I said, "Oh, you're like my older sister." Um, 6 months older and stuff, and we had that. And so it's made me think a lot of, where am I and where does this put me, out there in I'm 57 now. It's like, life is not going the other way and I'm getting younger. It's like life is going this way and it seems to be coming so much faster. now than even when I was younger. And it's like, okay, what do I do when is my time up in some ways? But at the same point, what can I do to still learn what I need to learn and understand, leave an impact for those that I want to leave an impact on and for in general, people in general, but those I love and care about too. It's really opening up a lot of questions. Um, where do I go from here?
Well, I have to comment that it was funny because I had this conversation with myself this morning already once, but I was thinking about the dogs that I've lost because personally, you guys really don't understand how weird I am. Like even people who are way out there, I'm like way out there past them. And I hide a lot of that even from my closest friends, because you would not believe anything that came out of my mouth, probably because it's just so bizarre, some of my beliefs. But I have a really hard time being human, and I don't think that I have bonded with humans. I have, however, bonded with animals, and I do believe they have souls. And I can't imagine, like I just had this conversation with myself this morning in the mirror, because I talk to myself in the mirror because I'm the only crazy one that can understand what I'm thinking. There are people that eat dogs and don't think twice about it, and people that treat animals in horrendously abusive ways. And to me, dogs have been my greatest teacher about love here on this earth. I have grieved more. I grieved more for my German Shepherd, Hera, than I ever have. And I've lost a lot of humans. And I've helped a lot of humans transition from this world to another. And I felt more grief when she died than I have ever felt over any human. And now, as I approach having to send my Sequoia on, that's it. I think it's going to be even harder than Hera, so I can't imagine how differently my life would be if I hadn't bonded with animals in this world and in this lifetime. I don't think I would have made it this far, you guys. As a matter of fact, I'm positive I wouldn't have, because they're really the only thing that has seen me through some very, very, difficult times. And Sequoia is getting older, and I'm kind of eking her out at this point. I've got her on cannabis twice a day and things to try to, keep her going. But knowing that decision, I'm going to have to make that decision in one of the upcoming days, it's caused a lot of imbalance for me recently. And I'm sure you can just hear it in my voice right now. And I've had some pretty low moments, recently. And I have to share this because this is why, because we were talking before we got on here about how we need to, we're doing a great thing by getting on here and talking, and the things that we learn from each other, whether nobody else ever sees these videos, like the things that we learn from each other are so amazing and life-changing. But we need to make a more concerted effort to share these videos and share these discomfort with other people. And the reason that's so important is because day before yesterday, I think it was a little bit time challenged, but I think it was day before yesterday, I was having just a very, very low moment, like really low. And my son is somebody that I can text to when I'm feeling like that. And so I was texting to him, and we were texting back and forth, and then the minute we quit texting, I get this calendar notification on my phone. Now, whenever I put something in my calendar, I always put what it is. This had it just said starts in 3 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't remember signing up for anything. Like, I don't know. Why isn't there's not a title? There's nothing, right? Just it starts in 3 minutes. And I'm like, well, I need to listen to whatever it is because, you know, I need to get out of this headspace that I'm in right now, right? Because that's one of the things that we learn here is that you have a choice over your thoughts. And sometimes your thoughts can go crazy, but you need to shift them. And so we've read lots of books about different ways to shift the way you're talking to yourself, shift the way you're thinking to move you from one space to another. So I said, okay, I need to be on this thing, whatever it is. It turned out to be, y'all, my most favorite energy healer in the world, because our stories are almost identical, except he's gone on to be like a multi-trillionaire and I'm not. But beside that fact, like we're almost twins. And he normally does like an hour's worth of healing. He did 2.5 hours of healing right then when I needed it. And I don't think I have ever felt more loved, because I felt like something in the universe, and probably myself, for all I know, who knows, like how these things work, and God, somebody out there, like really saw how bad I was hurting and sent me this tremendous gift. 3 minutes, get on there, 2.5 hours of healing. Like I couldn't have afforded to pay Jared for 2.5 hours of healing, you guys. You have no idea. And I pretty much just sobbed through 3/4 of that, when I wasn't just so grateful and thankful for it. I was just, but the reason I bring all this out is because our content matters. His content, his willingness to speak out about all those crazy things that I believe that maybe somebody else would look at and say, oh, that's just fucking bizarre. You need to be locked up. It was comforting to me. It was life-changing for me. It made me feel love in a way so deep that nothing else even has, done that where I really felt like, oh God, you're really listening. Like you really know how bad I needed this right now, and you sent it to me, and I was so grateful. And that's why I got on a little high horse this morning, maybe about, yeah, we need our content matters. Like we need to stop thinking that what we have to say doesn't matter and that our experiences don't matter. And one of the things that this chapter said was, your wisdom has to be imparted. It's not enough to just be here and gain it. You have to impart it to others. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to do that through this mastermind.
Yeah, I really feel like that's, probably what we were all drawn together to do. And I know that what we're doing is what we need to be doing, and we can definitely be doing more for sure. And I know that will all come together as it's supposed to, in the time that it's supposed to. We will just do. It's interesting because I get, I don't know, I'm sure with you guys, you probably have the same thing, as you just feel all of a sudden, you just feel compelled and you do something, whatever it is. And for me, it's the same thing. I just, I try not to tell myself too many should have, ought to's, blah, 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 all of that, because then I just start feeling crappy because I'm doing that. And, obviously that's all of these thoughts in my head of what I should be doing and ought to. And but I also know that when I just trust, I tend to do what needs to get done at the right time that it needs to get done. And so I'm I'm trusting in that. And I know in some ways, you know, some people, some of these like success gurus and blah, 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 they're like, no, you gotta do, you know, all the time and be working so hard to be successful at whatever it is you're trying to do. And although I do believe that there is work involved with what we have to do, it I feel like when we try and force stuff, it doesn't come through as profoundly or genuinely or you know, I mean, I don't want anything to be forced, or I don't want to feel like I'm forcing myself to do something, because then I don't feel like it's as authentic or as good as it would be if I'm just doing what I know that I'm supposed to do in this moment, you know, versus what I think I should do. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I, I know we're doing what we're supposed to do right now. I know it absolutely. And for those of you who are watching, I know that you're struggling, you know, in your life, well, I know because we all struggle with crap in our lives, right? So in everything that I keep coming across, the more that I read and the more that I look at things, and even in these books, and I see these, definitely in this chapter saying you have to share, or it wasn't have to share, it was, you know, in order to move on, you have to impart your wisdom, everything that you've learned, um, to the earth plane. And you know, and in the previous chapter, was it the previous one? Another thing it came across is there was the woman who worked in with the babies that were born to addicted mothers, and she had started that program. And when she was speaking with the spirit guides, as they were like, because she was like, what do you think, is it working, you know, is it doing what it's supposed to do? And they kind of like almost had this kind of flippant attitude about it. It's working, it's okay, don't worry about what the world says, you know, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And so I'm like, okay, because you know, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm right. I'm just do it when I'm compelled to do what's supposed to get done. And I can let go of the shoulda, ought to be, et cetera, knowing that I have faith in my higher self that will push me when it's time, you know, to do whatever. I don't even know what it is, but I mean, so well, and you know, and going back to you know what I was saying earlier about my friend Josh who passed when I was young, and and these lessons that we have to learn in life. If I had just gotten over it, or not gotten over it is not the right way of looking at it, but if I had realized the blessing of him in my life was a blessing and it wasn't a loss, and I had realized that um, you know, if I'd realized that early on at the beginning and then just instantaneously was going right back out into the world and loving and letting everybody in as easy, or not even as easy, but then I wouldn't have gone through the experiences that I had in my life that have brought me to where I am right now. It would have been a different path. And you know, who knows? Maybe I would have been open too soon for my husband to have the life of growth experiences that he needed to have. Because I mean, our shit that we went through it wasn't just me. He had to go through it too. And obviously he saw it from a different perspective. Um, you know, and it wasn't I don't want you to think that there was like this, you know, I'm missing this person and so therefore I don't love you as much. Like, there wasn't any of that. It was just me being not completely open to a deeper level of love, you know. And now it's like our the dynamic of our entire relationship has changed because of me being open. But at the same time, you know, our whole family had to go through what it went through over those years. Not that we had like a big knockdown, drag out fights all the time. We weren't that kind of couple. we've always gotten along, and we've always done well together. It's just there was kind of that underlying wall, of just not letting him in as close as I might have, just because of the fear. But it's I mean, if we're talking like we have these soul contracts with one another and that we've planned out all these experiences, um, we had to experience, because that's what we came here to experience. And one thing he was talking about, oh, I don't know where it was in the chapter, but he was saying that, um, or the Valerie Soul, I think, was saying that the one of the reasons that we come here to this earth plane is because there are lessons that we can only learn, or we can't learn them in the spirit side. We can't even understand them completely in the spirit side. And he they gave an example that was, let's just talk about one little thing, and it was, like hunger and thirst. And so if you come and you are a greedy person and your fear considered, if you get to a point where you're starving, you're going to take food from someone else who's starving. You're going to keep it. You're going to hoard it. And that's the physical experience that you have from that. But yet, if you are here and you already understand, your spirit self, because I guess that's kind of the thing that they're trying to get across to us, is that we come here to experience this lower level vibration so that we can learn and experience the connection that we have with our higher selves, and that we can know our higher selves from a different perspective. It's kind of like, you wouldn't understand what hot was if you didn't know what cold was. It would just be. It would just, what is it? I don't know. It just is. It's a word. It's called hot. What does that mean? I don't know. So we have to come into the physical plane to actually stick our hand in some hot water and stick our hand in some cold water to know the difference. But then it was saying, okay, so then if you are being generous and kind and loving, if you experience hunger, and then you're going to experience the feeling of what it feels like to, give the food that's in front of you to the person you see suffering, because you feel that, and so you're experiencing that. And you can only do that on the earth plane, because in the spirit world there's none of that. There's not hot, there's not cold, there's not hunger, there's not love. I mean, there is, but there's not a defining, there's no way to feel the difference. And so, as painful as these things are that we go through, we want to experience them so that we understand the difference, I guess. I mean, that's what it's kind of putting across. And so how can we truly know love, and truly know that connection with another being, if in the spirit we're always connected and we're always there? It's just, maybe we just kind of take it for granted that we're all there and we're all in this blob of energy, and so we come down here so we can feel it. So I don't know. I know we're already past the top of the hour. Let's everybody just kind of share something to wrap up for today, and we'll definitely get back into this next week too.
Well, I was just gonna say, that's interesting how you said some of that, because I didn't catch everything you said, because my mind was kind of going off into things I was thinking about and stuff and things like that. But yesterday when I was out walking my roommate's dog, because there are times when she's not here, now that my old roommate has moved on and bought his house, so him and his daughter can have more space, and she has her own room. But she's not here a lot. She's over there. Long story. It's not going into that. I still don't know the whole thing on that. But I was walking him, and I was looking around, looking at the houses, and thinking, you know, what if I had been born into another family? Or what if and I got to thinking, asking those type of questions, because we had just buried my very good friend on Wednesday, and it really kind of got me, into thinking of where am I with my, my life, and um, why am and what it brought out also was that I feel very alone because I'm single still. Yes, I've been in love when I was younger and stuff, but I've not met somebody that, and I so want that. I so want somebody that I can turn to, depend on, and I'm thinking of, but at the same point, going back to some of the things you were saying, Samantha, that in a lot of ways, I don't think I've fully opened myself up because of the pain and hurt from things I saw as a child and experienced, and the love. And even though I was very much loved by my grandmother and I understand what that love felt like, but there's something I think so intrinsic about a love between a parent and a child that I have not truly experienced in that same depth. So in that, I think that's also kind of closed me off to really opening up to people, even though I feel I have a big heart for love and I can genuinely love people. But when it comes down to it, in that day to day, I think that's part of what scares me too is, but yet as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, am I really going to die now in essence alone? And, I think some of those things are what I'm looking at now a little bit more as I'm older and as time encroaches on, closer, that much faster it seems, because I'm looking at my mom, she's 77, and seeing things with her and changes in her, it's a lot of things are becoming more prevalent to me, and I don't know, I don't know how to. I do know how to move forward, but I don't know how to move forward in some aspects. It's weird. I understand a lot of like what Catherine says. You got to open up and be, but at the same point, you know, how do I get there too? Is kind of that convoluted thing, and that I think is where I'm at, trying to work on getting those answers, so that way I can make that impact, so I can be that impact, and for others and help them on their journey, whatever that may be, if any of this makes sense.
Of course it makes sense. And along with what you just said, and then earlier in the chat, Lori mentioned, she has MS. So she's kind of struggling with, did I actually choose this for myself? And if so, does that mean that all of my efforts towards healing this are for naught because I chose to have it? And I don't know, because I don't know what your soul plan was. I could see where somebody could choose MS for lots of different reasons, or any other condition, like feeling separated, Dan, like feeling like the only person you've ever had a connection with was your grandmother, and she's gone, but she's not gone. She's always with you, whether you know it or not. She's always there. And I actually have a meme I'm going to send you. Well, it's not really a meme. It's actually an art piece that I did, and I'm going to send you that. But, I could see where someone could choose MS, maybe to come in to, show that you could heal it. Or maybe it was to come in to inspire people, because you inspire me, Lori. I mean, just the time that I spent in, 5 years in a wheelchair, I can't imagine more of that. And I understand in a very small little way, like some of the challenges that you go through in a day. I mean, I look at you in absolute wonder that you have become a teacher, you're right, like all these things that somebody else with MS might not have done. Maybe they chose MS to come in for sympathy or something. Whereas I feel like, you know, you inspire people through just your everyday, what you do on a daily basis, and your willingness to share that on social media and different things. I get such inspiration from that. So I don't know why you chose it, but I need you to know that you inspire me, and I don't think I'm the only one. Like, I think anybody that knows you is inspired by you. So I'm not sure why you chose it, but that is certainly one of the side effects. So, you know, one of the things that it brings out in this chapter is that, you know, when we have a death that we think is too soon, or, you know, just it was a mistake or whatever, that it's not a mistake, and that we agree before we come in that that person, we're going to lose that person early on, and it's gonna fucking ruin us, you know. But we agree to that because we love that person so much that any time, even seconds, that we get to spend with them is worth the pain. Now that's what we think on the other side. We get here and it's like, holy shit, why did, you know, what was I thinking, right? But when we're there and we're just, and all there is love, and all this duality and all this other crap is not there, you know, it's very, all we want to do is come down and spend time with each other, you know, and regardless of what the restrictions are, or the challenges are, or the time limitations are, it doesn't matter, because we just love each other that much. And I love you guys. And I hope you have an awesome week.
Oh, thank you guys so much for sharing. And I know we can always learn so much from one another and each other's experiences. And for those of you who are watching, I encourage you to share your experience in the comments below, or if you'd like to participate and talk about your experiences next week. I know we'll be talking about this chapter at least for another week or two, I'm sure, and there's so much in this chapter. And so please jump over to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That'll take you directly into our Facebook group, and you can ask to join and ask to participate with us on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. We'd love to have you. And and Laura, you made a comment here close to the end of, I often think there's only questions and no precise answers, you know, and maybe that's what it's all about, is just to come here and ask the questions and see what that kind of, what it brings up, what, you know, because even when we think we maybe have an answer, we'll have another question to go right behind it. And that's okay. So, you know, particularly if, like you were saying, Catherine, we came here just to experience each other on this plane, on this physical plane, so that we can see what these things actually feel like versus what we think they are. Then you know, really, we're just all here on some big elaborate vacation, just goofing off and seeing what it's all about. I mean, there was a part in here where she was talking about or Robert was talking about Valerie, and how this is her third time of a go around with these other two souls and experiencing death. And you know, it's hard when we go through it, right? Why would we choose to go through it again and again and again? And it's got to be because that we can feel. It's something that we can feel, and we want to experience something from it because of it, to learn, to understand. You know, and I can say, you know, for myself, as losing the person early on in my life, and you know, and experiencing that is such a great loss, but then realizing it was really a blessing, and that I'm missing out by not allowing complete connection, you know, with my husband for all those years. And it wasn't like that person was in between us. It was just that I was afraid I had so much fear. And when I let go of that fear and just started embracing what we had and how amazing that was, then everything was even more amazing. And so it's just, it's difficult, right? It's just difficult. But then when we can understand it just a little bit better, then all of a sudden it's like, huh, okay. Or, you know, even if we just look at this as like, okay, we've come here and yeah, we're experiencing all this stuff. It's all crazy. It makes no sense, but yet we get to do it because it's like a roller coaster ride. Oh, it's so much fun, right? I don't know. It doesn't seem like much fun some of the time. It's really painful and upsetting, but we get to do it, right? So obviously we want to, in some way. I don't know. It's the ups and downs and the backs and forths and all of that that makes life what it is. And we can either look at the one side and be like, this is a blessing that we get to feel all this, or we can shut ourselves off and try not to feel any of it and still feel a whole bunch of crap that sucks, and then it sucks too. So I guess it's up to us. We get to choose, you know. Anyway, with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Hey, click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you want to be updated next time that we put another video up. So, bye for now.